Welcome to the Clutch Time Podcast with your host, Daniel Kreider and Ryan Vargas. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to the Clutch Time Podcast. Here we go. Back at it. Hope y'all had a great Thanksgiving. Some pretty awesome games this last week, and it's going to be fun to talk about this one. Michigan beats Ohio State. First time in 10 years. Duke knocks off Gonzaga in the basketball world. Raiders beat the Cowboys and all kinds of stuff. Man, we are in full swing in sports right now. I want to welcome back my co-host, Ryan Vargas, and also Ryan Palmer. Welcome, fellas. How you doing today?
What's up, fellas? I'm doing good, man. It's good to be back with you guys.
Hey, guys, I'm doing all right. I'm a little sick, but, football doesn't stop, so I don't. So I'm here for you fans out there.
There you go. That's a real trooper right there. So, fellas, I want to go ahead and kick this off with one of the crazy games this last week, which was the Michigan beats Ohio State. First time in 10 years. I mean, I believe that Jim Harbaugh keeps his job now for sure, I would think. I don't know how they could ever even think about getting rid of him at this point. But what a game. It was a heck of a game, Michigan just made it happen. Bottom line, their offensive line was killing it, and looked really good. So, Palmer, I want to know your take. What was your take on that game?
Let me get my mic up here. This is full of my medicine. I feel like I've been singled out a little bit because I was pretty adamant that Michigan would lose to Ohio State and Penn State, and I was wrong on both of those. But luckily, I wasn't the only quote-unquote analyst who thought so. But to answer your question, that was a complete treat. That was the rivalry game that we didn't deserve, but we really needed. And I would put it to you like this. Like when you're a little kid and you have to get good grades on your report card, you have to get all A's to go to like Splash Mountain or whatever, Six Flags, Disneyland. But, you just didn't get it done. You got all C's, but your dad was benevolent enough to let you go to that Six Flags. And as a country, I don't think we deserved a game like that. I think we've been really shitty to each other and been really stupid. But yet the football god said, like, you know what? No, let's give you this really great game. And when we talk about rivalries, this is what I was talking about 3 weeks ago, where these people, Ohio State hates Michigan and Michigan hates Ohio State. I don't know if you guys saw the game, but there were fights on the field.
Yeah.
There were a lot of cheap stuff on the field. They almost got in a fight coming into halftime. It was a high-scoring game. It was a physical game. It was a snowy game. I am pleased because I like Jim Harbaugh. I really do. I just didn't know he could have done it. And so I'll eat my words on that one. I think Michigan, if they beat Iowa in the Big Ten championship, I think they could probably get to the national championship. I'd like to see that. I don't think Harbaugh will get fired this year. I think this has to buy him time. But yeah, to answer your question, I am just ecstatic for all the rivalry games. Bedlam, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma. That was a really good game that came down the last moment. But in particular, that was definitely the game of the weekend.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think that game, like you said, that was just good for college football in general, man. Yeah, what a trip that here we are, a couple weeks out, and here's Michigan that's put themselves in a position to, be in the college football playoff and whatnot. And I agree. I'm a Harbaugh fan as well. And I think Michigan really wants him to be there. They want him to be the guy going forward. And this was like that big monkey off his back, so to speak, and this was huge for him. And it's funny because we were talking a couple weeks ago and it was like, what if Michigan does this? What if Michigan does that? Can they find themselves in that college football playoff? And here we are. They got one more matchup with Iowa, and that could ruin it all for them, honestly, if they go to Iowa and slip that up. But I think that's just a testament to the type of college football season that we've seen this year. You know, it hasn't really been predictable at all. I mean, other than Georgia dominating at the top for a while, but even Bama, I mean, they always the other one, you know, and like kudos to them. They find ways to pull it out, but it's a unique year in college football, and I've really found that to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, they went to 3 overtimes in that Auburn game. That was crazy. And just the 2-point conversions that just kept happening. I'm thinking,
Yeah.
man, what in the world? But I agree. I think this was, honestly, I think this might have been one of the coolest weeks in sports we've had in a very, very long time. Very
By
long
far.
time. And so I was excited about that. And I think the only rivalry game that you know, I won't want to say disappointed, but was kind of like, well, yeah, we expected that, was the Oregon State game. Oregon had that game won from the very beginning. I mean, they fought back, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't, that game was over before it started, I think, and that's my opinion. But yeah, the Bama game, another good one. You know, it was like, I was sitting there like, there's no way Auburn is going to beat these guys. And talk about eating words. You know, this is coming from what I was saying at the beginning of the season. There's Alabama, Georgia, and then everybody else. Well, my goodness, I've ate my words a few times on that. I mean, they've survived, but it hasn't been pretty at all, you know. But yeah, I think that was an impressive game.
Now, don't eat your words too much on Alabama, because honestly, Alabama is not the Alabama last year. They're not as dominant, and they could have lost a lot of games. But when it comes to the Iron Bowl, that's the Alabama Auburn rivalry. The thing is that's always a toss up. You don't know who's going to win that, and that's what makes that game fun. So, you know, on paper, Alabama looks great, but they're not clicking on all cylinders. I don't know if they'll go to the national championship playoffs this year. I think they will probably lose to Georgia. You know, have that 11-2, 10-2, maybe get into a New Year's Six bowl. But yeah, don't eat your words too much on that. Well, actually, no, let me take back. You should actually eat a lot of crow, because you're saying that they were the greatest, but there's a lot of chinks in their armor, so to speak. A lot of it is on the defensive side, and their offensive play calling under Bill O'Brien has not necessarily been up to par. And then here's another rivalry that was kind of dead upon arrival: Clemson, South Carolina. That used to be really competitive. But, you know, South Carolina had a really good season this year. They're going to go to a bowl for the first time in God knows when, but they just got smoked by Clemson.
Yeah, that game was 30-0. Another rivalry game, though, that was super fun to watch and was cool, was that Minnesota-Wisconsin game. That actually was a really good game. It kind of got swept under the rug because of all the other stuff going on, but that was a really good football game. And that was exciting to see. Minnesota beats them by 10, you know, 23-13, but that was a good game. So like I say, I definitely wasn't disappointed in the rivalry games by any means.
Palmer, isn't your team isn't UTSA your team? Is that the team that you've been talking about for a few weeks now? Yeah, is it UTSA?
Yeah, listen, buddy, I don't know how much swearing I can do on this the show, because it's a family-friendly program. But listen here, you little pissant. I was pushing for them because they were the darlings of the state of Texas.
Yeah,
now, make no mistake. University of Texas Longhorns are my team, and we're not going to a bowl this year, but we won our last game. Speaking of rivalries, Texas A&M is one of our rivals. They lost to LSU, which I'm delighted in. Oklahoma lost to Oklahoma State, and then they lost their head coach, which I'm also delighted in. And that is the essence. That is the essence of a fan. This is what I hate about Pac-12 people in particular. They keep saying like, oh, I just want someone in the Pac-12 to go into the championship. I just want to be represented. I don't care if it's Oregon State. I don't care if it's Washington or USC. I just want us to be represented. And I'm like, screw that. There's 3 teams that I root for every Saturday on a religious basis. Obviously, Texas Longhorns, whoever's playing Oklahoma, and whoever's playing Texas A&M. And then, of course, to your point, Ryan, yeah, UTSA. So I guess there's 4 teams. University of North Texas is a good football program. Now, obviously, they're not the Roadrunners pedigree, so to speak, but they I think they were 4th in the nation in rushing, and it showed that game. That was one I watched from front to back, and I remember thinking during halftime, like, hell, they're going to talk to me about this one because I've been really pushing for UTSA. So thanks for bringing that up.
Well, I brought it up is because, I mean, they're ranked, they're UTSA. I wasn't even sure what UTSA even stood for. I knew it was a Texas school, though, and then I saw they lost by 22 to North Texas. So I was like, man, that's tough. That's a tough loss right there.
Oh, we might be having some technical difficulties here.
Yeah, you lost me for a second. I didn't hear what Palmer said.
And it was good because it was mostly negative. And the viewers don't want to hear your hate spew out of your mouth.
Well, then we can move on.
Oh yeah, Conference USA champs, babe. Let's go.
Yeah, it could be. I guess you never know what the future could hold. Oh, they better have a dang good recruiting class coming in next year.
Well, the thing about this, there's only if none of the Power Five or the Group of Five schools ever really have a top tier recruiting class. If you actually look at Cincinnati, who presumably is in the playoffs as of right now, they don't have a top 10 recruiting class, and they haven't for a long time. And if you look back, say 20 years, there's two things that you need to be a national championship, to be a national champion, and that is a top 10 recruiting class. Now, would they break the mold and break that glass slipper or whatever that saying is? Probably not. They're probably going to face a team like Michigan, get beat. They'll probably face a team in Georgia and definitely get beat. Let's say Baylor or Oklahoma State get in, and this is where it actually is going to get a little convoluted because, for sure, Georgia's getting in. There's a 99% chance that they're getting in, so they can lose to Alabama and still get in. Alabama can get in if they beat Georgia. Michigan can win if they beat. I think Iowa is going to represent the West. Cincinnati's going to get in if they beat. I think it's Houston, which is another really good program down there in Texas. But let's say Alabama loses. Okay, now who's going to get in? Are we going to allow a 1-win Big 12 champion to get in there? Maybe. It would either be Baylor or Oklahoma State, which is not a sexy brand by any means. Oklahoma had to go in to the playoffs to make it a little more watchable. But there's not too many Baylor Bear fans or Cowboy fans for Oklahoma State. But then I think there's a team out there that lost only one game that I think we all, including us, forgot to talk about, and who's still in contention. Do you guys know who that is?
Notre Dame.
There you go. Yeah. I was hoping you guys wouldn't get that. But yeah, Notre Dame only lost one game to Cincinnati. And that one loss kind of took them out of that contention. And we haven't talked about them since. And I think they're deserving for sure. But
I agree with that 100%. Do you still think that Georgia is the runaway to kind of, with the shakeup going on in the top four and whatnot in these past few weeks? Palmer, do you still see Georgia as, the almost the overwhelming favorite, or do you still feel like it's kind of anybody's game come college football playoff time?
No. I think it's any given Saturday when it comes to the SEC championship. I think Alabama could win. But if Alabama loses, I don't really see, and I've been wrong before. I thought Michigan was going to get shellacked by Ohio State, but in fact, they shellacked Ohio State. So I think Michigan could pose a threat if they show up to play. I don't think Cincinnati belongs in the national championship contention. I'm sorry, Bearcat fans. I'm happy for you. I'm glad that revenue will go to your school so you can build some really cool facilities and maybe a new library, whatever the hell you guys decide to spend that money on. But let's be honest, you're not going to beat Georgia. And I'm you heard it right here, folks. If Cincinnati plays Georgia at any facet in the playoffs and they beat them, I will shave my head on air for you guys to watch. I am that confident that they're not going to win. So I think Georgia's definitely going to do it, but from there, it's basically who's going to get to the championship and lose to Georgia. And I think that could be Michigan at this point. I actually want to touch base, not just on Lincoln Riley, but I don't know if you guys also know this, but the University of Florida found their coach in Billy Napier over at Louisiana Monroe. So congratulations for Florida. You have a really good coach. As far as USC, you have a really good coach, but he is a pansy. He is so afraid of competition that he left and went for the path of least resistance. Now, I want you guys to think of it like this. Oklahoma has won so many Big 12 championships within the last 10 years that it's not funny. It was a top-heavy power conference, and Oklahoma was the one really tipping the scale. Sure, Texas did fine, and TCU and Baylor did good, but it was always Oklahoma who won. Well, now Oklahoma's going into the SEC. And LSU really wanted Oklahoma or Lincoln Riley and was willing to pay top dollar from that to get that coach. And if you look at the press conference when they asked him about it, he was adamant. He was even angry, saying like, "No, I am not going to LSU. I'm staying here at Oklahoma." The next day, the very next day, USC job opened up. They offered him, I don't know the money amount yet, but I'm assuming it probably could have been matched or not as much to LSU because those people really love football out there. And I know they would have really gone in a bidding war with USC. So it makes me wonder, why are you going to USC? Is it because
hey, we're losing you, Homer?
This is anything else but you're afraid to go in the SEC. Oklahoma's going to get shellacked in the SEC. And you know what, guys? I don't like saying this, but I'm afraid for Texas when they go into the SEC. Because as far as it stands right now, LSU is above Arkansas in the SEC West, and LSU and Arkansas shellacked, beat the crap out of my Texas Longhorns. I don't know if we'll ever get up to prominence again, and I hope we do under Sarkisian, but that's yet to be seen. So when Lincoln Riley just leaves Oklahoma, which is a really good job if you think about it, for USC and negates going to the SEC either via LSU or Oklahoma. There's really no other way to put it. And he's also taken all those recruits from Oklahoma. And I think Ryan and I talked about it right before the show started. A lot of these recruits are switching these 4- and 5-star kids from Oklahoma to USC. And what he's going to try to do is really cause a splash within the next 2 to 3 years to be the top dog in the Pac-12 and make a playoff contention where he wouldn't be able to do that at Oklahoma. And I'll say one more thing about this. As a Texas fan, I see Oklahoma going on a decline because I don't know who their coach is going to be. I don't know who's going to fill that role. So I think Oklahoma is going to really struggle. And I am delighted in this. Oklahoma, I hope you lose your football program. I hope you guys become a basketball school, maybe even get into gymnastics. I don't care. I cannot wait to see your program go down. You guys suck. That's a rivalry, gentlemen. Oregon, that's how you should treat the Beavers. Not saying, oh, they cussed at me once. Screw you guys. There's fights that go on at these actual rivalry games. So, anyways.
So real quick, Palmer, fill me in. So you say that Oklahoma and Texas are going to the SEC. So yes. I'm behind on this. So they're moving conferences next season.
I don't know if it's next season. I think it's within the next 3 to 5. And this is one of those things about, football that a lot of people kind of don't know that go on behind the scenes, like coaching searches and stuff like that. But the Big 12 media deal is running up soon. And Texas and Oklahoma signed up for, I think it was like 2023 or 2025 to go into the SEC. So basically the rich get richer. The SEC network is the largest grossing college football network. And the SEC is the highest grossing conference. And so they're picking up the biggest brands in college football outside of the SEC in Texas and Oklahoma. And so that's what, it's not because excuse me, it's not because of, the level of play that they have. They're just national brands, if that makes sense.
Wow, that's a power move right there. I didn't know that.
And that's why I'm on here.
That is why you're on here for sure. And that definitely makes his move to the West Coast. It makes sense, honestly. I know people have their opinions on whether or not he's avoiding competition and whatnot. But interesting, very, very interesting, man, because I mean, obviously his plan now is to go to the West Coast, make the college football playoff, and, you know, run through the Pac-12 and then get to play. He'll have to go through an SEC school no matter what, to actually win a championship. But yeah, wow, that's interesting. I didn't know that they were moving over to the SEC. That's crazy, man.
And just to really pound the nail into the coffin here, as a self-hating millennial, that's what Lincoln Riley is. He's a millennial. He's looking for the path of least resistance, and he cares more about his record, because as it sits right now, he has a really good record at Oklahoma. I think he's 55-10, made 4 college football playoff appearances, a lot of Big 12 championships, but he's not going to be able to do that when he goes to the SEC. There's just no way.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's all very good and valid points there. Fellas, let's transition and shift into the NFL. Another interesting week. It was on, I think that we kicked off on Thursday. You know, 2 teams that could be in the Super Bowl, the Chicago Bears and Detroit Lions, went head to head. Yeah, that was probably the most pointless game of the season so far. And the Bears barely squeaked it out. So it was, yeah, that was terrible. But the Raiders did beat the Dallas Cowboys. That was a very interesting game. Ryan, you're a Cowboy fan. Vargas, you're a Cowboy fan, right? And so that made for a little bit of a rough Thanksgiving day, I would think, as coming from that angle.
It did for sure. I just always have this feeling in my gut too, because the Cowboys just always have a way of just doing stuff like that, you know. And I feel like all the opposing teams love playing there. I don't feel like people go there and they're intimidated to play in Texas against the Cowboys. And for the Raiders, they need that win bad. That was a win to keep their season alive. And so, I mean, yeah, as a Cowboy fan, it was disappointing, but Thanksgiving games, dude, with the Cowboys, you just never know. You never know. And I mean, you've asked me a few times if I think they'll win the Super Bowl. And even as a Cowboy fan, it just seems like there's the consistency part just really isn't there with that squad. Not yet. I feel like they're definitely in the right direction. But yeah, they're just too up and down. I feel like a lot of teams have been up and down, not to switch gears, but I mean, I was raving about the Tennessee Titans the other day, and they've been dropping games too, you know. And so for me, the most, I don't think Palmer can hear a word I'm saying right now.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like reading his lips. He's like, what the? But yeah, Danny, not to switch gears too much, but the most consistent team for me that I've been seeing is, I mean, the Packers.
That's
Aaron Rodgers, man.
Yeah. And to beat the LA Rams, that was kind of a big deal. You know, that's a tough win. You know, they made those trade moves, and you know, that was still a really good game too, by the way. It was 36-28. So but yeah, their moves that they made so far have not paid off dividends just quite yet.
Yeah, I mean, the Rams have been dropping maybe 3 in a row. I'm not positive on that, but I know that they've been struggling, bro.
Yeah, and they're 7-4 right now. So
7-4.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then the old Patriots, 6 in a row, I believe, 6 wins in a row.
They are rocking, man.
You know, it's really funny how people talk about the Patriots and how it was all Tom Brady. It was all Tom Brady. Well, it doesn't seem like that's the case anymore, because now you got a rookie quarterback in Mac Jones.
Right.
And they're 6-0, right? You know, 6-win streak going on. But how lucky is Mac Jones, if you really think about it?
Yeah. No, that's crazy. That's one of the luckiest draft pick quarterbacks to come in his rookie year possibly ever.
Yeah. You go from the winningest coach in college football and get drafted by the team with the winningest coach in the NFL.
All he had to really do was just kind of walk into the role. You know, there really wasn't a lot more for him to do. I mean, but I will say he still plays a big part in that, although it was the perfect situation to walk into. There's also a lot of pressure walking into that situation, you know, especially when you're filling one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, if not the greatest quarterback of all time. and you're going in to fill his shoes in that role. So Mac Jones, I mean, man, hey, do your thing, man, and keep rolling with it. I think there's a lot to do. Tom Brady, won this last week. Speaking of, and with Tampa beating Indianapolis 38-31. Not one of those devastate, like I'm stomping you down wins, but a win's a win, and they continue to roll as well.
Going back to Mac Jones, I mean, that says a lot about him. I mean, he was recruited by Nick Saban, right, and then drafted by Bill Belichick. And you think about that. I mean, he had to come in. He wasn't the starter when he got there. Cam Newton was still the starter. He kind of played that well. Was just kind of quietly going into practice and won the team over, won Belichick over, and had a battle out with Tom Brady earlier in the season, which was fun to watch. That was a close game, and here he is, 6 wins. I think you guys are exactly right. I think he was extremely blessed to be drafted by the Patriots and under Belichick, but I think it also says a lot about that kid.
Yeah.
And the type of player and the type of leader that he is. The relationship that Saban and Belichick have, I'm sure there's conversations behind the scenes about Mac Jones, and it's just a testament to his character and his leadership.
Oh, and you're right, they do have conversations like that, and I would be willing to bet money that they had a conversation about that. I think one of the best things about Mac Jones in particular is out of all the rookie quarterbacks, he knows his skill sets and he doesn't try to win the game. Mm-hmm. He tries not to mess it up. And he's in a really good situation to do that because he has Bill Belichick. But say, Trevor Lawrence, who plays for the Jacksonville Irvin Grinders, he has to win those games. He has to try to win those games. And so he makes these throws that he shouldn't, and then he loses. Same with Fields and the Chicago Bears. They suck, and he feels like he has. Well, actually, Andy Dalton's in, but when he was in, he felt like he had to make those plays. And Mac Jones doesn't feel like he has to make those plays. He just thinks, I have to complete this ball. I can't take a sack, and I can't turn the ball over. And he's in a great situation. And going back to what you're saying, Dan, there is kudos to him because he knows what he is. He doesn't have a big ego. So he's just basically being that cog in the wheel and doing
Mac Jones, hats off to him. New England, I'm curious to see what you guys' thoughts are on now that this season has seemed to take such a dramatic shift in the NFL season, which it usually does. As far as like who you guys see now, because I know we talked about Buffalo one week. Buffalo was playing exceptional football. They kind of fell into a pretty bad, I would guess you'd call it slump, because they won big this last week today, actually. Who do you guys foresee in the Super Bowl at this point? I mean, honestly, if I was to have to pick two teams, and it sounds like I'm repeating history over again, but I really feel like it would be the Green Bay Packers and the New England Patriots right now.
I'm gonna go ahead.
Okay. I would actually disagree with you. I think it would be Tampa Bay. And for you guys who listen, because I have fans sometimes reach out to me and say, "Hey, it's pronounced Tampa Bay." I get that, you dope. I'm saying Tom, like in Tom Brady, Tampa Bay. So just to get that one out into the open. But yeah, Tampa Bay and New England, I think, would be the two. And they had such a good game this last go around. So I think it'd be awesome to see that in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I can't see Tampa Bay, or that would actually be the epic game. If you could play the Super Bowl, I think in the same conference, I think that would be the Super Bowl, and there wouldn't be any AFC teams in it. But
that's fair.
I mean, it would, but in all, I just feel like Green Bay, like Ryan was saying, or Vargas was saying earlier, is that they've been the most consistent, and I've always said I don't bet against Tampa Bay, but if I was in the current state of where both, all the teams are, that would have been my picks. But I totally get what you're saying. I could go with Tampa Bay too. I mean, the Bay teams, Tampa or Green Bay, one of the Bay teams are going to the Super Bowl. I hate to break it to the rest of the world, but they are.
Yeah, it seems super top heavy in the NFC, because I think you're right. I think we're going to see a great matchup between Green Bay, or should I say Rodgers and Brady. I mean, that's what we're going to see. But as far as the AFC goes, I have no idea at this point, because you also have the Chiefs, who are back up in the AFC West at 7-4, and everybody was counting them out, and they're a team that's experienced. I like Mac Jones and I like the Patriots, but I don't see Mac Jones as a Super Bowl quarterback yet, and I think that Buffalo, man, I was so high on Tennessee, and they've been letting me down these past couple of weeks, dude. I thought I had the AFC figured out. I don't know, dude. Maybe Kansas City, maybe Buffalo, but I think that the game to watch and the matchup of the year is going to be that Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers matchup. That'll be really, really fun.
So real quick, Vargas, you said that Mac Jones to you doesn't seem like a quality Super Bowl quarterback.
That's correct.
I would surmise that you're not a quality person after what you said about UTSA. So how about you keep your opinions to yourself and leave good old Mac Jones out of this, bud?
But hey, at the same time, if Joe Flacco can win a Super Bowl,
right? Or
maybe
Trent Dilfer.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I might eat my words.
Yeah, and UTSA is going to the national championship next year.
Oh God,
go Roadrunners!
All right. With that being said, Ryan Palmer, thanks for joining us, man. It's always entertaining. It's always fun. And we will see you next week, my friend.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. And if I can just say one more thing, I said, Jennifer, if Michigan, like Michigan beating Ohio State would be like Jennifer Lawrence trying to go on a date with me or something like that. Well, I mean, Michigan won. So Jennifer Lawrence, how about you stop DMing me? All right. I'm spoken for, lady. Get on my DMs. But anyways, thanks for having me on, guys. Can't wait to hear more about basketball.
All right, man. We appreciate you. Thank you, sir.
Later, Palmer.
All right. We're going to transition right out of that straight into the NCAA, which is a game I'm super excited to discuss and talk about, which was the Duke Gonzaga game, the epic Duke Gonzaga game. That's been one of my favorite basketball games I've watched in a very, very long time. And I know I've said that earlier about football games and stuff, but this has just been one of those weeks, man. Duke beats Gonzaga, but I'm telling you what, that was a battle of back and forth. Holmgren, Branchero or Brancaro, or I think is how they say it. Both guys, man, just super studs in my opinion. Chet Holmgren looks more awkward to me, but the kid just gets up and down the floor. He can handle the rock. He plays defense. I mean, he looks like a twig in there with all them other guys, but man, I'll tell you what, they are not pushing him around and they are not bullying him. And this is a freshman. I have nothing but respect for those two teams right now. And that was one of my favorite basketball games I've seen in a long time. Now, don't get me wrong. It's early in the season. There was some miscommunications and some slip ups on defense that I think were pretty obvious. When you're playing up and you're pressuring up and you have a guy slip to that short corner and he's wide open and ain't nobody 5 feet around him, you ain't going to see that later in March, later in the year. So I love that game. Vargas, what's your thoughts on that one?
I hope we get to see those two teams play again.
I do too.
That was a lot of fun. That was so much fun. And I think I learned more about Duke than I did Gonzaga that game.
I did.
Just in a sense of we all know Gonzaga's stacked, and they're deserving of that number one spot. They'll probably fall a couple spots, and Duke will probably move up, but they're very good, very well coached, and they're just stacked. They're so stacked. Like you said, Chet Holmgren, like he looks so skinny out there, but his presence on that basketball court, on both ends of that court, and just seeing how his game's going to so smoothly translate to the next level with his ability to shoot the ball and handle the ball. And he's a unique talent for sure. But going back, I that game showed me a lot about Duke. I didn't, it's Coach K's last year, and it could just be me not keeping up as much, but I haven't heard a lot about Duke as far as the past years, and those absolute just those Zions, those RJ Barretts, those players that you just hear about all the time. And like I said, I could just not be as tuned in right now, but to see them come out and win that game, I mean, they won the first half by 3. The second half was tied. It was just fun, dude. It felt like March and November.
It did.
And shout out to Coach K and pulling that one off. And that was just a good time.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just hit it. I mean, it did. And I think that's why I was like, man, this is just a blessing to be able to watch. I was just excited to see just good, because, preseason, the beginning of the games, you see a lot of these schools, they're not playing, they're not jumping off. But I will say too, I wanted to make a comment about, you said that Gonzaga might slip. I don't think they're going to get bumped out of number 1. And I'm going to tell you why. Because they just played UCLA earlier in the week. And I mean, their schedule this week was, by all means of any imagination, not weak, not soft. I mean, they played 2 highly, really well played, good basketball teams in the same week, so yeah, I don't think they'll bump down for now anyway. Of course, Duke could go on a run, but I think the ACC Big Ten Challenge starts this week, and I think Duke got Ohio State. So EJ Liddell and his crew at Ohio State will be going against Duke on, I believe it's Monday, or maybe it's Tuesday. That might be the Tuesday game. Yeah, it's Tuesday. So it'll be Tuesday night. One other game I wanted to kind of bring up, and I don't know if you caught it or not, but I sure did, was the Michigan State UConn game on Thanksgiving. Michigan State beat UConn, which is a pretty big win for them. Michigan State currently isn't even ranked in the top 25 at the moment. Of course, most of your Big Ten teams, although the Big Ten this year, I think, is maybe not quite as good as, it's still going to be really good, but maybe not quite as good. Purdue is really good. And they're going to, Purdue's going to make some major noise. But UConn was ranked 22 at this point, and they both came in, played well, and Michigan State pulled it off, and that was just a solid game. Did you get a chance to see that game?
I didn't get a chance to see that one, but I'm curious. So after watching that game, do you feel like Michigan State just played their game of the year so far, or do you feel like they're a team that belongs and that's for real and that can compete?
I don't feel like at this point they're ready to compete at a high level yet. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because there was a lot of careless, which you're going to see at the beginning of the year. I felt like there was some, they didn't take care of the ball well. Defense wasn't quite as crispy as they normally would be. Didn't play terrible. And UConn was on the same boat, by the way. It isn't a fact of one or the other. I feel like, another game that I watched, speaking of sloppy play, was Memphis. I was really impressed with the kid, Jaden, that plays for them guys, or plays for Penny, is where I was going with that. And down in
Imani?
Yeah, Imani Bates. Thank you.
Imani Bates.
Yeah, Imani Bates looked like complete dog crap. Jalen Duren is a player amongst players. That kid is tough. He plays very good defense. He's a super solid. He can score it. But Imani Bates, man, I had such high hopes for him. So when I got a chance to watch him, I was like, cool, I get to watch him. And man, I'm not even going to lie. I bet he shot 3 at least probably 3 threes that I don't even think they touched the rim. I think they went off the backboard. I mean, it was just terrible. And I was like, now granted, he's a freshman, so I'm not trying to put unrealistic and I believe he just had a really, really bad game. I haven't got to see him play a bunch yet, but you know, I don't know. I don't feel like they were playing an outstanding team by any means. And I guess that was kind of my disappointment more than anything. So yeah, so those are a couple of the games that stuck out. Have you got a chance to see Bates play yet?
Not with Memphis. Not with Memphis. Definitely watched him a lot on his come up. I mean, he's been very, very popular, but no. And I believe, you know how a lot of players will reclass in to basically, you know what I mean, they reclass and so they get to basically save a year,
Right.
whatnot. I think Amani Bates reclassified but classed up to actually get to college and get to the NBA sooner. So a lot of people will do it and they'll actually get an extra year of school. I think he did the opposite. So he might be a little younger, but that being said, I haven't watched him at Memphis. I'm really curious to see it because people talk about him like he's 6'9". He's under 200 pounds, but yeah, that's interesting to hear your take on him. I need to watch a Memphis game and kind of see it. And
Yeah.
I haven't heard much of that other guy you were talking about, Jalen Duran.
Oh, you will, because that dude's impressive, and he's a big kid. He's big and strong, and dude, he can jump, he can get up, man. I seen him blocking shots. I was like, my God, I was excited to watch Imani Bates, and I'm like, man, who is this kid? Like, and then I actually got to watch him, and man, his game, and he is really young as well. But man, I'm telling you what, you give him a solid season all through this year and maybe even one more if he don't end up in the league after this year. And I'm telling you, his body type and his body size is ready for the league. You know, it's just, I don't know if that'll be his path or not, but he really impressed me, man. I was like, man, Imani, who is this kid? You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
and I think Imani Bates will have a lot better games as well. Yeah, he just didn't look very good. And that's okay. I mean, like I say, he's young, but man, I'm gonna catch him at another game. I want to see him play against a I don't want to discredit anybody, but I want to see him play against a power 25 or top 25 team and see, you know, what that looks like. But yeah, as far as he goes, I wasn't super impressed, but I'm not shutting the door on him yet. Yeah, so that was another game that I caught that I was like, wow, okay, and got to see another kid play, and that's the fun part about this is that you get to see, you know, there'll be a kid that'll just stick out to you. Is there anybody that has stuck out to you this season so far that you're like, wow, I really like this kid?
Not necessarily. I'll be honest, I haven't really sat down and watched a whole lot of games besides that Duke Gonzaga game. And like I said, I think Chet Holmgren, I think he's pretty impressive. I think they're saying number one pick. I don't know, maybe, but I just really see his game at the next level. The way the NBA's these days, and you know how the bigs have to be able to handle the rock, and so I was fairly impressed with him. You could tell he's got to get bigger, and he's got work to do still. But other than that, man, there's nobody really off the top of my head. I mean, one thing I have been pretty disappointed in is the Oregon Ducks. Man, their basketball team has just taken some L's. I think they're sitting at 3-3, but some of their losses, man, were
bad.
They were bad.
They were really bad. Yeah.
And all we've been hearing out here is these recruiting classes that Dana Altman's been getting. But yeah, that was kind of disappointing to see.
Yeah, he lost a few guys in the transfer portal last year, I know anyway. So I think that's kind of a downside to that. But yeah, going back to Holmgren, yeah, he's a force. I'll tell you what, he impressed me being so long, as long as he is in the UCLA game when he shifted right and then shifted back left and went behind his back and down the lane for a dunk. I was like, oh, okay, this dude's the real deal. Like, I mean, this kid isn't like, he isn't a guard per se. You know what I mean? This kid is, what is he? 6'9", I think he is 6'9", 6'10", maybe 7 foot. Heck, I don't know. But, he's a big dude, you know, and yeah, so that, you know, that was interesting. You know, another kind of a side note, I guess this will be a bonus. Yeah, he's 7 foot. Another bonus is, have you seen, did you get a chance? There was a high school game on. It was Duncanville, I believe, and Sierra, where Bronny James and his squad. And I did not know this, but Penny Hardaway has a son that plays on Duncanville, and they put it on them boys. I mean, it was a good game, but the Duncanville team out of Texas, they got some guys down there. They got a few guys that I was like, wow. Okay. I mean, I was watching a high school game and it looked like I was watching a college game. I was like, oh my gosh, these guys are freaking good, man. Like, man, where we find them kids at?
Yeah, I didn't see that game, but that's interesting. There's also a Hardaway on Memphis's roster.
Yeah.
I'm curious if is that one of Penny's boys as well?
It is, I believe, yes, as well. But yeah, he's got another kid down there in high school. I believe this kid's going to get some. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I'm pretty sure he'll end up in Memphis, but you know, I guess that ain't always the case, even though your dad's coaching down somewhere. But you know, he looked pretty good. I mean, he would do these little. They have the offense designed to where he does these little kind of float. He just kind of slowly and quietly will creep down in the corner. And man, he knocks it down. I was like, dang, I did not realize. And they were like, oh, you know, Penny Hardaway's, you know, son that goes down here. I was like, oh my gosh. Like, man, he looked good. They had a lot of guys that look good, but then you're listening to their roster of all these kids. They're all NBA sons. I mean, well, not all of them, but a majority of them is like, you know, we had like Scottie Pippen's son plays. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
holy smoke. Yeah. Life had to be rough coming up through the ranks, you know, when your dad's in the league. But, so yeah, so that was good. That was good stuff. I was trying to think of any other games that stuck out to me this week as far as basketball. I know we're kind of coming down on time. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Ryan?
As far as college basketball, no. NBA though, man, can we all just say that Steph Curry is just on an absolute tear right now?
He's the greatest player in the world right now, hands down.
He's the greatest player in the world right now, hands down. I 100% agree. Brooklyn Nets, they seem like a hot mess. Like they just can't quite find their groove. Which is, I mean,
I think we talked about that when that trade went down, I believe, didn't we?
Yeah, we did for sure. And I by this point, I anticipated them being kind of dominant, to be honest. But it's interesting watching Harden play right now with this rule change. And I don't know if you've seen that much, but he's not going to the line nearly as much as he's used to. And he's not getting the calls that he's used to because, you know, he would always do that little hook and draw a foul.
Right.
And with the rule change, he's not getting that. And so I've been trying to watch and keep up with how he's adjusting his game. And he's still James Harden and he's still doing his thing, but it almost looks like you have like this superhero who lost his powers, you know, and like he's just not scoring as easily. And he knowing him, like he'll probably figure it out. But Brooklyn has been interesting.
What about the Lake Show?
I love talking about, bro. I can talk about them all day because they're just like it's just like keeping up with the Kardashians, but with the Los Angeles Lakers, man. Like you just never know. There's just so much drama, dude. LeBron, like that guy.
He's something else, man. When he had those fans removed, I think they were playing the Pacers. I'm like, oh boy. Oh boy. What are we gonna do with him, man? I don't know. I mean, you get what you get, I guess. He's
It, it feels like
yeah,
a reality show, dude. Like
it
it's
does.
a it's a trip, but the Lakers, they are kind of what I thought they would be, to be honest.
The Real
I,
Housewives of the NBA.
it really is, man. It really is. You got Westbrook, who he is what I thought he would be, and it's no disrespect, but um, Phoenix Suns are the team to beat in the West besides the Warriors right now. They're tough, and I believe they've won 16 games in a row. They're like sneaky, just torching the league right now. The Warriors are still without Clay and still without James Wiseman. I believe they're 17-2. And I mean,
18-2 now.
looking at
Sorry, after today.
18-8,
18-2.
which is
And
that's insane.
They played some good teams, and so it's not like they've been, just playing some maybe not so high caliber teams. They've played some really good teams and they've made this work. Now the scary part of that is when these fellas do come back, these are real forces in the league. These guys aren't just like some, guy that comes off the bench and just kind of fills in a few minutes here and there. These guys are, so it's going to be scary when they get all these guys. And honestly, I've seen somebody on some show, I think they were like, the Golden State Warriors will be in the NBA championship this year. And normally during this time of year, I'd be like, you're full of crap. There's no way you could predict that. But honestly, I'm thinking, like you just said, they got 3 guys coming back. I'm like, they could be right. It could easily be that way. A surprising, I think a team that everybody should be major heads up for and really looking out for is the Chicago Bulls. Them boys are playing some basketball, dude.
Mm-hmm.
They are making that work, and good for them. Good for them. They've been long due for something like that, but they are playing really good. Now, I mean, they're not at the top of the East or nothing, but they're sitting at 5. They're at 13-8. The Bucks are at 13-8, defending champs. Brooklyn is kind of a sneaky 14-6. The Knicks are 11-9. Those are just a few teams. Charlotte's 13-9 as well. So I mean, there's a few sleeper teams in the East big time that, and why I say that is because I feel like as the season progresses, I feel a lot of these teams are going to get much better. What's your thoughts on that?
I think that the Chicago Bulls are extremely fun to watch. I feel like the way they crafted that roster is super impressive. A lot of unselfish players. Real quick, not to keep talking about the Warriors, but my favorite thing about this Warrior team is they lead the league in assists. And when you watch them play, I've never seen somebody move without the basketball the way Steph Curry does. Even from like
sure.
even from Ray Allen to Reggie Miller, like guys who were just masters at moving without the ball. Nobody moves like Steph Curry. You guard Steph Curry, you better be ready to run the whole time. And to see the Warriors the way they play, it's literally like watching art, man. And I get that same vibe. Chicago, it's different because they don't have a Steph Curry, but just the way they move the ball and the way that they're unselfish with it.
Right.
I don't know. Other than Chicago in the East, I mean, you still have Philly, you still have Milwaukee, but I'm just not super sold on any of those teams necessarily to go the distance. I mean, it'd be silly to count out Milwaukee because they've been there, done that, and with the Greek Freak, he's who he is. But I think the NBA is ran by the West right now, and everything will go through Golden State, and I don't see anybody beating them in a 7-game series.
Yeah, and going off of that, the most disappointing team of the year and they would be second place behind the Lakers, and These Are the Days of Our Lives soap opera award would be the Philadelphia 76ers. I feel even with that, they should be better than what they're playing right now. If they were to have the playoffs today, the 76ers don't even make the playoffs. That's insane to me. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but a team that's starting to kind of creep back up there though is Cleveland too. They got Evan Mobley, and he's playing pretty well right now, coming straight from USC. And his brother's still at USC, but yeah, he's playing pretty well in the league. You know, they're sitting at 10-10. Yeah, and I agree with everything. You know, the thing you said is that it does. The NBA right now is ran by the West. I mean, you got the Phoenix Suns. You can't forget about them and can't count them out. I've always said that from way back, is that Phoenix is one of my favorite teams to watch. And you know, other than of course Golden State. Golden State is just, God, we keep coming around to Golden State, but they're just one of those teams. Like, they almost freak the heck out of me. Like, this almost looks like the team when KD was playing at Golden State. Like, they're that freaking good. You know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah. Well, they have weapons now too that are new for their squad, you know, compared to their championship years, and they're young. And so they got athletic, they got young, they got shooters. I mean, Gary Payton, the way that he plays defense, they're lethal. They're lethal, dude. And real quick, I do want to add to Charlotte Hornets. They're fun. They're fun, you know, and they're sitting toward, I think, number 6. They're right there with Chicago at number 6 in the East. And I mean, we talked about LaMelo before, but they got more than LaMelo though.
They got Briggs.
They got pieces over there. Yep, they got Briggs. They got, who's the guy who LaMelo's always throwing lobs to? Crap, what's his name?
Oh, give me a second here. I know who you're talking about. We got Miles Bridges. Sorry, I said Briggs. Bridges. You have Kelly Oubre.
No, it's Miles Bridges. You're right. That's who you said. Oh, but Terry Rozier too, and Gordon Hayward.
Yep, that's the next two I was in.
Yeah, definitely a team to keep an eye on out there. But these days, dude, I just think of like, who's fun to watch play basketball.
Yeah,
you know, and there's just certain teams, and you know, shout out to the Ball brothers too, because I mean, in Chicago and in Charlotte, those guys. They're fun to watch. They're entertaining to watch play basketball. And shout out to Lonzo Ball. I mean, everything that kid's been through since he got in the league, and to find the situation he's found, and it's pretty cool, man.
No, I love that. And we've talked about it before, just the little bitty adjustments he's had to tweak on his jump shot and whatnot, and the things that he did to fix that. Yeah, and you know, and Caruso too. You know, Caruso and DeRozan, you know, they look really good, you know, and they're, you know, and then you got Levine in the mix of it all too. So, I mean, you just got some guys that can, you know, outside of Levine, I could see Levine being a superstar because he's starting to get that good. I mean, he's always been really good, but he's really been looking good lately. But I mean, they really don't have, the other guys aren't really superstars necessarily. I mean, outside of Ball, you know, but even Ball, really, it's just, he's just that guy that you can just lean on, man. Like, he sees the floor well. It seems like this system and this situation he's got himself in, he's way more comfortable.
Yeah.
You know, it seems like it fits his whole game. Period. You know, it's kind of what we were saying in football earlier. Mac Jones, you know, coming into a perfect situation. I think Ball came into a perfect situation, you know, and a team that was hungry for it. You know, they were hungry to see him do what he's doing right now. And so, you know, they haven't arrived by any means. The same thing with the Knicks. The Knicks, I love watching the Knicks play. Dude, I ain't said that since the 90s. I'm just going to be honest with you. I haven't said that since the 90s, but man, they are fun to watch. You know, good, solid team. Washington's starting to creep up a little bit. The Wizards with Bradley Beal and Kuzma and some of them guys. I mean, they're sitting at 13-7, and people thought they were counted out, for the most part. And then you got Miami's up there, Brooklyn. So you got some teams in the East, like we said before. There's nothing dominant like what you got in the West, where you're like, this team's going to be good. The Utah Jazz is going to be good. Dallas is going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
The Clippers and the Blazers, unfortunately, they're kind of flip up teams, flip of a coin teams. But you got Golden State, Phoenix, Utah, Dallas. The Lakers just don't seem like they're ever going to figure it out. It's still early in the year, though. But hey, I'd rather see Ja Morant.
I tell you what, the Lakers are going to make a push for something. They have to. They're going to try to get Ben Simmons. They're going to try to get Kyrie. They're going to try to shake it all up because, I mean, they're not here to just make the playoffs right now with LeBron. You know how that's going to go.
Right.
They're not going to ride through a whole rebuild year. Something's going to shake up, and we might be having different conversations about the Lakers. Just like that, they might get somebody who we're like, oh shit, or oh shoot, you know what I mean? Now they might actually do something, but until then, there's just, I just, it's a good laugh for me, dude. I don't know why I love it so much, but it was so predictable. I'm like, what are you guys doing with that roster? Like, there's nothing there. They're old.
Yeah, but they should be doing a heck of a lot better than they are. I mean, you still have some good guys in there. I think that honestly, the biggest problem is the personalities. The personalities are not lining out together, and you can build as many super teams as the hell you want, but we've talked about before, like, you only one person gets the ball, at a time. You know what I mean? And so if you're fighting for points or, and it's not necessarily for selfish reasons. And I hate when people say that he's got to have the ball in his hands. Well, it might not even be that as much as he's just seeing things differently than, maybe another guy or something. Like, for instance, LeBron and Westbrook. I'm just using that as an example. LeBron might see something one way, Westbrook might see something another way. Well, then if they're not winning in the middle of it, now you got people that's pissed off. You know what I mean? So it's never, I mean, we watched the Yankees try to do it. We've watched all these teams try to do it. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, they took on a pretty big payroll this last offseason. So I don't know how many, what kind of moves are going to be available. Cause I mean, who you going to trade? Dwight Howard? I mean, you ain't going to get nothing for him. DeAndre Jordan, as much as I would like to say, you ain't going to get nothing for him. The only people you're going to get something from, or, possibly get something sizable back from is going to be AD. And they ain't going to do that. They ain't getting, who you going to get for Westbrook? Westbrook's been on like 86 teams and there ain't that many teams in the league. You know what I'm saying?
You're going to get bricks and air balls for Westbrook.
Yeah, I mean, you'll get triple doubles all day long. You just get a bunch of L's, it's just, it don't make a difference, man. We've been having this conversation for 2 years, you know what I'm saying? And well, longer than that, before the podcast, but yeah, man, it's yeah.
I don't know, bro. I thought maybe I was missing something because I remember we talked about their roster and you made some points. Like, they got size, they got Dwight, and they got DeAndre. But I remember just looking at it like I thought I was missing something. I'm like, maybe I'm just like completely wrong, but well, I don't see it because Anthony Davis, like we've said, he ain't that guy.
No,
he ain't that guy. You know what I mean? And he's great. He's gonna be a Hall of Famer in the NBA. No doubt about it. But
maybe he's not a lock for that yet either.
That's true.
He's not a lock for that yet either. He ain't done that much. You know what I'm saying? He's been a force, but he ain't been that much of a force yet. He still has some years of consistency, but yeah.
No, I agree with that for sure. You would think he would be a lock by now, but I guess you're right. He still has to do something, But
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't have anything to trade. They really don't, unless they trade old LeBron, and you know that ain't happening.
Oh, that ain't
So,
going. That he's
so that means
retiring in LA.
they don't have anybody walking through that door who's going to save their season. I mean, unless they can leverage a way to pull Ben Simmons and who could maybe bring some sort of spark. But then again, I don't know how that would even fit, dude. I
But
think
my
that they're
God,
just,
do you bring Ben Simmons in, who's already a hot mess? You know, I guess that would be the LA thing to do, but I don't know, man. I don't think
he's not going to save you. He's not
no,
going to save them.
no.
No.
You're
So,
getting a different version of AD.
yeah, exactly. 100%.
I mean, it's so yeah. So it's it'll be interesting to see how this season wraps up. I know sometimes we're harsh, but man, it's like the reality is these guys are making hundreds of millions of dollars to do this stuff. And it's like, come on, y'all. Y'all can't make no better decisions than that. It's like, my God. I mean, I thought the benefit to them was that they were going to have a bunch of veterans that was like, okay, we've been down this road before. We've all had our dramatic media and teammates and locker room segments. Hey, we're all friends here. We're all boys. Let's just go out and hoop. Yeah, it don't work that way.
Well, it's funny because whenever I watch an NBA game, I'll watch the Warriors, Chicago, or whatever to watch good basketball. Whenever I tune into anything Lakers, it's not to watch good basketball at all. It's just to see what dramatic event's going to happen, who LeBron's going to go tell on and get thrown out of the game. You know what?
Oh, that was ridiculous, dude.
It's entertainment, man. It's just so funny because they're Los Angeles, Hollywood. It's perfect. It's perfect, man. I love it.
It does. It makes for good TV, I guess. But
It does.
oh, it's always fun, man. Always fun. Always fun. All right, man. We probably didn't gain any LA fans. We ain't gonna have no subscribers in LA for a while.
Hey, I got nothing against the Lakers. It's just what they have going on.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. But this is going to be a fun season, fun year. College basketball is starting to really rock and roll. We thank y'all for listening. Thank you for subscribing. We apologize for all the technical difficulties. Hopefully through editing, you won't see all that stuff, but we'll see what we can work out. Make sure to like, share, subscribe. We love y'all. God bless.